Yeah, come on. Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. I was just playing some new video games in Facebook's Metaverse. And I'm afraid to say it's dead on arrival. It will never work despite the fact that Mark Zuck is ready to burn $180 billion in next 10 years, hoping that you will wear this giant piece of the plastic all over your face in the future while he controls the content.
But the story is much more complex than it looks. It's the ultimate story of humanity's development, our constant struggle to expand our world and seek the truth about our future. But to analyze this intricate problem, we will need the help of the art, namely great classical cinema. We will need to dive deeper into classical literature and consult the world's leading professors.
Because this is Fabric of Life, a show where we try to marry art and science to answer humanity's most difficult questions. And maybe I'm the right person to tackle this one, because my name is Vladislav Radak, I'm writer and mathematician, and in 2015 I published a novel called The Book, where I created parallel dystopian universe, and I went on great lengths to discover and to immerse myself into what is necessary to create world that we want or don't want to live in. And I learned something along the way. Creating parallel universe is like complex chemistry. If you add too much of this or if you don't add enough of that, it will never be stable and Facebook's metaverse will never work. Here is why. Let me take you on an adventure.
Hello, Instagram.
Bad boy, I'm on a mission and I won't stop.
But before we start, don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you're not, and please click the notification bell icon because I don't want you to miss my next episode. While you're watching this episode, I'm traveling the world in search for the most beautiful bookstore for one specific reason that I'm going to tell you really soon.
Imagine being able to live in a virtual world. You can go there anytime, create a digital persona and hang out with your friends. You can collect gear and develop new skills. You can get married and battle powerful computer-controlled monsters. You can participate in community and build relationships with people whose real first names you might never know. And the best of all, there are no limitations. You can inhabit a land of fantasy, sci-fi, or anything in between.
Now, if I went to a handful of venture capital firms in Silicon Valley and presented this idea, they will throw hundreds of millions of dollars in my face and call me the next big thing. The only problem is this idea is not new and exists for years, and it never worked.
The metaverse is a fuzzy concept. It entered dictionaries via Neil Stephenson's 1992 dystopian sci-fi novel Snow Crash, where the metaverse is a virtual refugee from an anarchy-laden world controlled by the mafia, and was brought back by a series of blog posts by venture capitalist Matthew Ball. In Ball's formulation, which has quickly risen to scriptural status, the metaverse is always online virtual world that seamlessly blends with real flesh and blood world, courtesy of augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. Video games are part of it, but they are not it. Crypto and tokens will play sizable roles in the metaverse currencies and assets, given that people will actually work and make money inside.
So it was only a matter of time when some crazy rich person stumbles upon this idea and decides it's perfect opportunity to play what he or she really likes, the god.
The boy who would be emperor has a problem, something standing between him and the greater wealth and power. He envisions a series of virtual worlds to absorb all our remaining attention. The arbiter of activity algorithms in that world would be a god and able to serve a lot of targeted ads.
Mark Zuck and I agree on one thing and one thing only. People are bored. Like really bored.
The white-collar middle class working from home are tired of ordering products online, watching porn, scrolling through seamless, senseless content online, and trading NFTs. People want to feel human again. They want to listen and experience stories, and this is why Netflix and TikTok rose to their popularity, satisfying our cravings for both long and short content.
But is video game like interface where you need to wear a giant piece of plastic all over your face a right direction, a right pathway to that story? We need to look at some economic data.
VR headsets, along with similar products from Vive and Sony, sold about 6 million units in 2021. Real market, but not a category that's registered broad consumption adoption. Some heavily hyped projects have flopped, such as the notorious Magic Leap, which has raised $3 billion in venture capital over 10 years, while frenetically pivoting from one vaporware announcement to next, or Google Glass, which launched in 2013 but was pulled 2 years later. People swiftly realized it can do a handful of things that smartphone could, and worse. More reasons Facebook VR headset is uniquely positioned to fail. It causes motion sickness and skin rashes and prevents other people from having sex with you. It also doesn't pass the Crocs test. Whenever a product seems to be attracting a degree of hype and consumer it with its value, ask yourself, do people find it more sexually attractive than rubber slippers with holes in it? Answer: not even close.
Well, Vladislav, you know a thing or two about creating alternative universes. You wrote 4 books, of which 2 dabble in creation of alternative worlds, you might say, and you wouldn't be necessarily wrong. I went on a great lengths and read thousands of books before I wrote my last 2 novels to try to understand what makes people want to exist in some alternative world. And I also analyzed different forms of art. And to paint that picture better, I need to create a parallel between 2 movies of our recent history. One that went to become an instant cinematic classic, and the other that, by my opinion, failed.
An adaptation of the book of the same name, Ready Player One, transports us to year 2045, where planet is a brink of chaos and collapse, but people find salvation in the Oasis, an expensive virtual reality universe created by eccentric founder. When Valenti founder dies, he promises his immense fortune to the first person to discover a digital Easter egg that's hidden somewhere in virtual reality. The $200 million Steven Spielberg picture drew mixed reactions from the critics and audience. A video game-like spectacle was placed in a dystopian world that nobody identifies with and gladly nobody wants to live in.
And for some reason, Marquis Zuck believes that this is how we're going to live in the future and vote him scientific god.
On the other side is Her, a 2013 American science fiction romantic comedy film written, directed and produced by Spike Jonze, in which, heartbroken after his marriage ends, Theodore, played by brilliant Joaquin Phoenix, becomes fascinated with new operating system which reportedly develops into intuitive and unique entity in its own right. Movie full of emotions, humility, love and pain becomes an instant cinematic classic, showing us that parallel universe can even exist if just tiny headphone inside our ear. It doesn't need to disconnect us from our real world, and it needs to tell a story. It relies on technology but prioritizes human experience first.
It paints a picture of a future that we can actually live in. I have a simple question for you. Why would you book expensive plane ticket all the way to Barcelona, then stayed in like overpriced Airbnb cramped above some noisy club, and then in the morning wait for 2 hours to go inside of museum to see Picasso, where you can just sit in front of your computer, type Picasso painting in Google and experience it on the computer screen?
In The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction, originally published in 1935, Walter Benjamin, German Jewish philosopher, culture critic and essayist, introduced the concept of aura. Benjamin argued that even the most perfect reproduction of work of art is lacking in one element: its presence in time and space, its unique existence at the place where it happens to be.
Did you ever try to take a photo of a moon in the middle of the night, hoping that it will look something like in a romantic Hollywood movie? So you took out your phone, you snapped a photo, and it looked something like this? Well, this is accurate digital representation of the moon, but it's not really what you see, because what you see, what you feel inside, loneliness, sadness, happiness, exhilaration, is some of the all parts you, in this very moment of time, standing in front of that moon with all your collective memories, feelings and emotions. And this is why Universe from the movie Her actually works, because this parallel universe never requires us to disconnect from the real world.
One thing pandemic taught us that we are sick of lifelike experiences. Virtual concerts are great, but we want the real blast of music in our faces, crowds cheering, the collective experience of things that makes us ultimately human. Zoom calls with loved ones are okay, but a simple dinner with them in person will always top that. Watching BBC documentaries about miraculous wildlife shot with the most expensive state-of-the-art cameras will never be better than having eye-to-eye with an animal in the wild.
Alternative universe that civilization dreams about for centuries, where you can be whatever you want, a hero, a merchant, a lover, a great storyteller, can exist only if it has everything that makes us human: emotions, empathy, creativity, fear of death. And that universe existed all the time inside us. It just needs technology to be unlocked. And one piece of technology can unlock that inside of us and exists for thousands of years. And it works perfectly.
Hey, Vladislav here. I hope you enjoyed one more episode of Fabric of Life. See you next week. Coming up, poet with 1,000 identities and 1,000 faces. Until then, stay tuned and curious, and don't forget, libraries still exist.